Subaru has always been known for doing things its own way. Boxer engines, symmetrical all-wheel drive, and a reputation built on reliability and adventure. But when it comes to hybrids and electric vehicles, Subaru has taken a very different path. Instead of developing everything from scratch, the company has leaned heavily on Toyota. That partnership is now shaping the future of Subaru in a very real way, and nowhere is that more obvious than with the Solterra. For 2026, Subaru is expanding its electric lineup with new models like the Trail Seeker and the Uncharted. Both of these are closely related to Toyota electric SUVs, reinforcing the idea that Subaru is not trying to reinvent the wheel in the EV space. But the Solterra, the first all-electric Subaru, is not being left behind. In fact, it has received some of the most meaningful updates since its launch. And after driving the new version, it is clear that this is not just a minor refresh. The biggest and most immediate change is what happens when you press the accelerator. The Solterra Touring XT now uses a dual motor all-wheel drive setup, producing 338 horsepower. That is a massive jump from the previous all-wheel drive model, which made just 215 horsepower. On paper, that is already impressive. On the road, it feels transformative. The old Solterra never felt slow, but it also never felt quick. It was adequate, predictable, and very Subaru-like in its conservative approach. The new Touring XT completely changes that perception. 0 to 60 miles per hour now takes just 4.3 seconds, down from 6.1 seconds before. That is not just an improvement. That is a night and day difference. To put that into perspective, this is now the quickest accelerating Subaru ever tested. Faster than the WRX STI, a car that has long been associated with performance and speed. There is something almost surreal about saying that an electric compact SUV now holds that title for the brand. It speaks volumes about how electric powertrains can redefine what performance looks like, even for manufacturers that have traditionally focused on combustion engines. Around town, the Solterra feels lively and eager. That instant torque gives it a spring in its step that the previous model simply did not have. Merging onto highways is effortless. Passing slower traffic requires only a gentle squeeze of the pedal, and there is always a sense of reserve power waiting for you. On the highway, the responsiveness makes the car feel confident and relaxed, even at higher speeds. However, more power does not automatically turn a car into a driver-focused machine. While the acceleration is undeniably impressive, the Solterra still does not feel like a true driver's car. The steering, while accurate, lacks feedback and engagement. It does what it needs to do, but it does not communicate much back to the driver. The handling is competent and secure, but it leans more toward comfort and predictability than excitement. If you are expecting something that feels playful or sporty, you might come away disappointed. The Solterra behaves more like a Forester than a BRZ. Body motions are well controlled and the suspension keeps everything tidy, but there's little in the way of emotional engagement. The most thrilling sensation still comes from that electric shove when you floor it, a feeling that is common to many EVs. One area where the Solterra still falls short is regenerative braking. Subaru offers multiple levels of regen adjustment, allowing drivers to choose how aggressively the car slows when lifting off the accelerator. But none of these settings bring the vehicle to a complete stop. True one-pedal driving, where you can drive almost entirely using just the accelerator, is still missing. For many EV enthusiasts, that is a notable omission, especially as more competitors embrace that feature. Beyond performance, The battery has also been updated for 2026. Interestingly, the increase in capacity is modest, just 2.6%. Yet the range improvement is anything but small. The Solterra Touring XT is now rated for 278 miles on a single charge. That is more than a 20% increase over the previous touring model, which was rated at 222 miles. This new range figure puts the Solterra firmly in the conversation with other all-wheel drive compact electric SUVs. Models like the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and the Volkswagen ID T4 now sit in a similar range bracket, making the Subaru far more competitive than before. That said, the Tesla Model Y still holds the crown when it comes to range, with estimates that exceed 300 miles. So, how does Subaru manage to squeeze so much more range out of a battery that is only slightly larger? The answer lies in efficiency improvements. The Solterra now rides on different tyres, which are likely optimized for lower rolling resistance. That alone can have a meaningful impact on range, especially in everyday driving. However, real-world results may vary. Looking at the coast-down data submitted to the EPA by Toyota and Subaru, the updated Solterra is only about 5% more efficient at highway speeds, around 75 miles per hour. Based on that, expectations should be tempered slightly. On a steady highway loop at that speed, the new model would likely achieve around 210 miles of range, compared to about 200 miles previously. That is still an improvement, but it suggests that the headline range figure may be easier to achieve in mixed or city driving rather than sustained high-speed cruising. As with most electric vehicles, how and where you drive will have a huge influence on how far you can actually go. Inside the cabin, Subaru has made some welcome changes. The updated dashboard design feels more open and less intrusive than before, particularly for front seat occupants. The layout no longer feels like it is encroaching on your personal space, which improves overall comfort. Physical knobs for temperature control have returned, a move that many drivers will appreciate in an era where too many functions are buried in touchscreens. Subaru has also added 2 wireless smartphone charging pads on the center console, a small but practical upgrade that reflects how people actually use their vehicles today. Despite these improvements, some of the Solterra's packaging quirks remain. The steering wheel can still partially block the digital gauge cluster depending on how it is adjusted, which can be frustrating. The seating position is also quite tall, which may compromise headroom for taller drivers and passengers. These are not deal breakers, but they do remind you that this is a vehicle with some design compromises. Pricing is another area where Subaru has made strategic moves. Over the past few years, the company has lowered the price of the Solterra to make it more attractive, especially after the loss of the federal EV tax credit. For 2026, the fully loaded Touring XT comes in under $50,000, which feels reasonable given the performance, range and all-wheel drive capability on offer. In a segment that is becoming increasingly crowded, value matters more than ever. Buyers have more choices than they did just a few years ago, and expectations are higher across the board. Subaru's decision to adjust pricing shows an awareness of that reality. Even so, the Solterra is not without strong competition. The Hyundai Ioniq 5 remains a standout in this class, offering striking design, an engaging driving experience and a well-executed interior. Compared to that, the Solterra feels more conservative, both visually and dynamically. It does not have the same sense of flair or fun behind the wheel. But where the Solterra now succeeds is in being genuinely competitive. The early versions felt like they were playing catch-up, offering solid fundamentals but lacking in key areas like power and range. The 2026 updates address those weaknesses in a meaningful way. The result is an electric Subaru that finally feels like it belongs in the conversation. It may not be the most stylish option. It may not be the most exciting to drive. But it is quick, capable and practical, with the kind of all-wheel drive confidence that Subaru buyers expect. Perhaps the most important takeaway is that the Solterra no longer feels compromised. It no longer feels like an experiment or a placeholder. It feels like a proper product that can stand alongside its rivals without apology. Subaru's collaboration with Toyota has clearly paid dividends here. By leveraging shared technology and focusing on refinement rather than reinvention, Subaru has been able to deliver a much improved electric vehicle in a relatively short amount of time. As the brand continues to expand its electric lineup with models like the Trailseeker and the Uncharted, the lessons learned from the Solterra will likely influence everything that comes next. If this is the direction Subaru is heading, the future of the brand in the electric era looks far more confident than it did just a few years ago. The updated Solterra may not be perfect, but it is faster, more efficient, and more appealing than ever before. And for Subaru, that might be exactly what it needs right now.